Hello families. Hi, my name is Antoinette Hunter from Amazing Growth. If this is the first time watching my channel, you are very welcome and keep watching. On today's video, I am going to be talking about long-term changes and vertical planning for individuals with autism. You guys, if you've been watching me, you know I work with children. So my world is Kids World and Kids World is my world. I love working with babies. We're going to continue on the long-term changes and the vertical planning for individuals with autism. Progressions from one life phase to another are known as vertical transition. I am going to give you an example of vertical transition. Vertical transition is when your child is transitioning from one stage to the next stage, usually a permanent stage with a vertical transition. Another example is your child is transitioning from early intervention into a permanent classroom or a classroom setting. It could be an inclusive classroom or a small classroom where it's based on one-on-one. Another example is the progression from a middle school to a high school. It's another example of vertical transition. I usually work with children, so I like to focus on kids that are under the age of 5 years old. You can also use this information with kids that are older, but I just want to stick to the 0 to 5 years old children on this video. Research has revealed some good practice guide for preparing a child or a loved one to an individual for major transitions. These are usually permanent transitions that takes place for like a while. You know, if your child is transitioning from early intervention and into a classroom setting, this is not something that is going to take a year. It can take up to 2 to 3 years depending on the situation. So when they're turning 3, they're usually transitioning them into a classroom settings. So there are some questions that researchers have put into place that you should be practicing and putting those guidelines to help you make the transition very easier for the child. Gather information. What changes is about to occur? Those are the questions that you want to ask yourself. You want to gather information. You want to ask yourself the changes that are about to occur. When is the changes going to happen or take place? Where, who, and how? You want to ask yourself those questions so that way you can prepare yourself and the child better. You want to think about the recent transition changes you've had with your child in the past. Okay? You want to gather information and ask yourself what changes is about to occur, like what's going to happen. When is this changes going to happen? Where? And with who? How has this person reacted to previous transition and changes? So you want to ask yourself, how has my child reacted to previous transitions and changes? What transition strategies work or help in the past? Now, as a parent, you want to develop a plan. Don't just wait and rely on the therapist or other people to do that for you. You sit down and think about a plan to meet with all the key people who will be supporting your child during this transition. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to follow up. If your child is in early intervention, you want to follow up and make sure you're talking to your program coordinator regarding the transition from early childhood into a classroom setting, so you don't miss your meetings, all the meetings that you're supposed to be having. You don't want to miss it. It's important that you develop a plan to support the transition. Like, you might be asking yourself, what kind of plan am I going to develop to support that transition? Create support such as visual sequences, social scripts, transitional stories, sensory support, and short movies. Who are you going to do that with to implement those strategies in place? You want to do that with your child. The visual sequencing, the social support, the transitional stories, the sensory support, and short movies are important. You want to prepare that child for transition. You want to make visual stories by using books of the places that, or the things, the transition that is going to take place. If it's in a school setting, read books on, your first day of school. Tell your child, prepare your child that they're going to school. Use flashcards, create visual stories at home, and even with words, because some of these kids are very good with print. But you want to make sure that when you have your when you have print, always back it up with visual pictures, because kids are very good with visuals. They can make connections to it. Drive by the school, visit the school with the child. If possible, you can even meet with the child's teacher, so that way you guys can get to meet each other. The child is not going to be having any anxiety the first day of school. Not that your child won't have anxiety, it will minimize the level of anxiety that your child is going to anticipate, okay, or have. So if you have all of these things in place, it will really help. And don't forget, it's very important that the IFSP is also discussed with the teacher. Knowing the child teacher need to understand what the child likes, what the child does not like, what triggers the child, to have outbursts, things that keep the child engaged, the child interest. All of those things are important for the person that is going to be working with your child to know about your child. That you also want them to focus on that IFSP, because when the IFSP is individual family plan, but when they transition into a school setting, they'll be having IEP, which is individual educational plan. Okay, that's the difference between the two. So the IEP, we're focusing on the child's needs. Once you implement the plan in place, it makes the transition very easy for you and the child, where you're not home and you're not worried on what's going to happen, or this child doesn't know what to expect and all of that stuff. Don't forget movies. If the child like movie, use movies. Understand your child in creating stories. Social stories are important when you understand the value that drives your child, meaning your child interest, likes, and dislikes. Once you know those things, you'll be able to create a story for that child. It could be role playing with little puppets. It could be using little people, animated figure during back and forth play with your child. You guys can just be having a discussion. You can be reading books. Some children love books, okay? You can also have a schedule on your refrigerator that talks about school. When you start school, what's going to happen. Include a child picture on your story. Make a house with your child, telling your child this is the school. Draw things that you're going to be doing in the school. Those are all different ways you can create stories about the transition with your child. So lastly, you want to evaluate and review. Now, what would you be doing when you're evaluating and reviewing? You should be asking yourself questions such as, Was the transition support plan effective? What should be changed for the next time? Is what you put in place, is it helping? What do you think you need to do to change it or to modify it? You are the one to answer that question, because when you're working with your child at home and you're doing all the necessary things that is required for you to do, you're playing your part, you will see what's working and what's not working, and then you can make modifications. So you build that bond with your child, and then you can collaborate with the child teacher on your observation or based on your observation. You know, it's so great when a parent really knows and understands their child. It makes the teacher job very easy, and you guys can work collaboratively, and you will produce better results for your child. It's all about the child. It's not about the teacher, and it's not about the parents. We want what's best for the child. So we all need to do our part, right? Okay. I hope this video really helps. Thank you so much for watching. Again, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Goodbye.